What if I say something crazy? Thank you for introducing me. And when Kevin comes, since you're a sponsor from Cutco, which by the way is the very first job I ever got fired from. It's the start of a long legacy. Um, but they're very good knives. I actually do recommend them. And I still have my pair that I got from when I worked there, which was in 1992, I think. But I think I've only sharpened them once, which is probably the best commercial for Cutco I could imagine. And Kevin's not even here for it. So couple of things before I forget. Number one, make sure your name and your licensing number is in the chat. And just in case, we have made a Google form. You can put it in there too. That way, Chrissy can make sure to get your name and your licensing number to make sure that you get the credits, because we want to make sure you get your credits. But what I'm excited about in being able to work with a professional association is that there's a lot of work that I do that is directly in line with your professional ethics, because you're already doing a lot of the skills or tools that are needed to have conversations that matter, are something that you already do regularly with your clients, with each other, with all the other kind of brokers that you're dealing with in your own work. But we don't necessarily realize that those skills are replicatable, especially when we start thinking about topics that make us get a little nervousy. There are people that kind of instantly give us agita. There are people that we totally avoid because we don't even want to talk to them. Sometimes they're in real life, sometimes they're in social media. I am convinced that the family member that you're trying to avoid at the holidays usually are sitting next to the gravy. So you have to choose between like carbs and condiments and engaging in a conversation with the person that you're not interested in engaging with. It's not fair, but it's just kind of how the world works. So what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about kind of who I am, how I have been doing the work that I've been doing that really actually shifted about 5 years ago, largely because I was totally burnt out. So some of you may possibly be experiencing some degree of burnout as well. Some of that may be this COVID pivot related, some of it may be something else, but I want to be able to share the skills and tools that we almost always already have and a different way of looking at them and using them so that you can have better conversations that matter, make better connections, which actually do lead to deeper relationships and ultimately, as business people, more profits, right? Because the better relationships you have, the more you are able to actually be successful in the work that you're actually doing. So that's kind of my big plan for the day. Again, as people are joining, make sure your name and your licensing number are in the chat and or fill out the Google form. I'll put the link in the chat again, just fed by. So I'm curious, and you're welcome to put this in the chat. This is not your name and your licensing number, but what are the topics, just one or two words, what are the topics right now that make you a little bit more nervous about engaging in or you try to steer clear of? Some of you are like, if I'm steering clear of them, why would I want to type them into the chat? But I just am curious, like where you're at, what is it that you're trying to kind of make sure? So politics is almost always, it's funny, it's election season, it is also holiday season. Everything seems to be politicized right now, so politics is pretty much a given. What else? What are other things that you're trying to avoid? Like if your customers or clients or somebody in the grocery store 6 feet away has something, starts engaging in a topic with you, then when the crazy COVID conversation, that's true. What's funny is I don't know what crazy COVID conversation means. Like, is it this side or this side? Because everything's politicized. What else? Learning to listen more and talk less. That's hard for me to do. Any other topics? We've covered COVID, masks, and politics, which for the record were the ones I was guessing. I don't want to say race and racism. Sure, that makes sense. Anything else a little scary? Okay, great. I'm going to put the link in again for the form, but just to kind of delineate a mark. Oh, good. I'm glad we're to talk about the fact that business has slowed down is an obvious one. The person who's way too afraid of saying anything wrong. I know. I'd be silent all the time if I was afraid of saying something wrong because I say wrong stuff all the time. Okay, so here's the link again, but I'm just using that as like a demarker. So now I'm curious, what is a topic that you think someone else finds challenging to talk about, but you are super excited to talk about it? Like it is the thing that you love talking about, and you would be the first person to jump in, or maybe even sometimes you're mid conversation and you realize, oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to bring this topic up. Is there something that you talk about freely and openly and are super excited about it, and then other people get nervous? Public health, religion, great. It's funny is that usually these are the inverse of the other ones, but the exact.
Buddy, no. You can't go out.
Any other topics that you are interested in talking about? Need for education, NAACP, great. Any other topics that you love talking about? Abuse, physical or mental abuse. That's an interesting one because sometimes that's one that most people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And then you just kind of find yourself talking about it. Great. Health, politics, real estate. How come it took that long, Rich, for real estate to come up? Y'all, that was like a gimme. You're supposed to say like, oh, let me tell you about this new thing that's on the market. Okay, great. Need for financial literacy. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, that's a perfect start. Now, the reason why I wanted you to do that is that when I asked you, I just want you to think about how you just did this. When I asked you, what is something that you're scared or nervous or gives you agita to talk about? Some of you, I saw your faces, were like, and you came up with like 100 topics. And then you're like, what am I supposed to put in the chat? Because you have to edit the topics that you don't want to talk about because you don't want to look like a jerk, right? But so you're like, let's see what this one. Oh, someone else put this one. So like politics was a great example. Someone typed politics, and then all of a sudden there were like 4, like, yeah, that one, what they said. Okay, great. Then I changed the question to what is something you're super interested in talking about, but other people may not want to be talking about or may be uncomfortable for other people. And then again, some of you were like, I don't know. And what's interesting there is that often what we get excited at talking about, we don't even realize might make other people uncomfortable. We have to kind of be made uncomfortable so many times that we then remember, this is the thing that some people are not interested in talking about. For me, it is always around kids or having kids. I do not have kids. You're welcome. And what is interesting is that because I am in my late 40s, but I am at least perceived to be, finally, I have made it to be over 20. I still get ID'd for things, but I think it's just like the mask more than anything. But people don't think I'm almost 50. So they will start talking to me about children and rearing things, living creature things, nurturing things, biological clocks. That also happened. And I would just be like, yeah, I can't participate in this. I have no idea what's talking about. I would become uncomfortable, but then eventually they would become uncomfortable because they made the assumption that I was going to talk about children. So then we have to have this whole conversation about whether or not we are not allowed to talk about kids. Even though I have no firsthand experience, I now have enough children in my life, or more specifically, adults who are parents. Those adults are also children. That I can actually hang in a conversation, even though I don't actually have my own kids. I'm using this as an example because when you are talking to coworkers, when you're talking to clients or customers, when you're talking to total strangers, when you are placing a order through one of those scratchy microphone drive-through speakerphone things, you are making a connection with another person, and you have the opportunity to turn that into something that makes a better connection on a human level versus just kind of a transaction of information. It's particularly interesting when Chrissy and I first talked and Vicki and I first talked, I called my realtor, I always mispronounce that. I said it wrong, didn't I, Vicki? She's like, don't say this wrong. So then I've been practicing and I just screwed it up. Realtors, sorry. But I called my realtor and I was like, okay, what do I need to know about this? Because I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I am also talking to a group of professionals that based on their code of ethics have all of these skills. And the conversation that we ended up having is that the mediation that you have to do, the fact that your writing is mandated to be clear and understandable means that you have to adjust how you write or present things based on the customer that you're dealing with. You're not allowed to lie. I think it's weird that we have to write that down, right? But like, no, you have to be honest. Okay, well, if you don't write it down, you can't hold people accountable for when they haven't been honest, and you don't have to raise your hand. But let's just say you probably have met someone who was not 100% honest, right? That's why, oh, look at the eyebrows. I just saw some eyebrows move, right? So it's in the ethical codes because you're supposed to be holding people accountable to this because it's a professional standard. Okay, great. But you also have to cooperate. I know that when my parents died, I sold the house that I was born in or raised in. I sold the house to the one human being who was the realtor for us in selling the house, and ended up selling the house to their daughter, which, by the way, is a conflict of interest. And I was 19. I didn't care. I just couldn't pay the mortgage payment. So it worked out fine. Everybody was win, win, win all around. But that conflict of interest and the ability to have to work with other people when you're being competitive, when there's money involved, but there's also your clients' like dreams, right? Like I know that this house, when we bought this house, just in case you're interested, this house is about 1,000 square feet smaller than we were looking for and about $100,000 more than we thought we could afford. But have you seen the view? We'll figure it out. And we walked in, we broke into the backyard, actually, if we're being specific. And like, I immediately took a nap in the backyard and was like, this is it. This is the house. And I would imagine that if you were dealing with a customer or a client, a friend, a community member, someone who lives in your town, you're going to see them again in the grocery store, and you're at that moment where something so powerful is about to happen in their life, where they're like selling and giving up their dreams because of something that has happened, either good or bad, or they're buying something that is fulfilling their dreams and is setting their future forward. You are literally the broker of that moment. And you already have the skills in that moment to be able to cooperate and be honest and adjust the language, adjust your own positive or negative bias that may be happening related to the seller or the buyer, the neighborhood, the customers, the type of property that it is. You already have these skills. But as soon as I say, today we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what ends up happening is some people are like, I already know this. I read a book. I already took a workshop on this. I already know everything. I'm just here to make sure she doesn't screw anything up. Okay. Some of you are like, yeah, have you lived my life? What is this white lady talking about diversity? Like, I'm here for it. Like, you just go ahead and teach me about what the things are because you don't have no idea what has happened in my life. And then other folks, you're kind of Ally Sheedy. You didn't really have anything else to do on a Tuesday morning and you're just here for the point. So keep on talking. You got an hour and a half, lady. Okay. But if you have the skills and you can apply them in a way that doesn't give you agita, that doesn't freak you out or doesn't become a topic that you don't want to talk about, you're going to be able to use the professional skills that you already have to actually engage in deeper conversations with the people in your life, not just the people at work. And that was a really powerful moment for me in my own kind of professional development, so to speak, is that I was doing diversity trainings for probably close to 20 years. And what I realized is that the questions weren't changing, my audiences weren't changing, I wasn't changing, and I was getting bored. And more importantly, I was burning out about something that I actually cared about. There's something about the work that I was doing that I loved that wasn't going to be enough anymore. And I needed to figure out some new way of doing something. So to cure my burnout, I had to address it head on with the skills that I already had to figure out a way to have a new conversation that could energize and renew who and how I am with my audiences, but who and how I am in the grocery store, or how I am with my brother. Speaking of politics, my brother and I have wildly different politics. There's 158 topics I think we have documented at some point in time that we are not allowed to talk about with each other. And interestingly, when we do talk now, it's on Zoom, so we have facial expressions. We like have only the list of 158 things that we have so much anxiety that the other person is going to bring up that we have these really stilted conversations. They're really fun. These Zoom family reunions. Who came up with this idea? This is a terrible idea. But we do it as often as possible. We just wait for one of the other person to say some wackadoodle business. But the truth is that he's still my brother and I'm still his sister. And even though I don't exactly like this job, I can't undo the job. Can you use the skills that you already have to lean into the topics or the people or the conversations that maybe you feel less competent or you feel a little bit more nervous about? Maybe it flips and you feel judged, or you feel like you're going to say something wrong, or you feel like you're going to be called out or called in, as the children say now. You're going to do something that offended someone and you didn't even mean to, right? It's like, ugh, well now, once you've offended someone, it's just over. All of that is false. And what I wanted to spend today specifically with, is to help you realize that, number one, I guess this would be the thesis. Number one, I have no idea what you can possibly do to never offend anybody. I am probably already offended most of the people on this call. And if I haven't offended you yet, just wait, it's coming. But I can be responsible for the fact that that might occur. So there's a sense of empathy or gentleness that is coming in how I'm presenting the information, because I'm talking to a bunch of strangers literally over space and time. The sun is finally coming up and I've had a cup of coffee. Okay, well, let's see how this goes, because I'm interested in the connection with the people, not being right, which is a very different posture on my part. And when I, again, going back to my kind of realization of burnout, part of that flipping inside out is that I can only be actually responsible for who and how I am. And I can only be responsible for who and how I am some of the time, largely because I'm a self-absorbed, probably borderline narcissist who doesn't pay attention to other people very much because I have chais to drink and things to tweet and stuff to watch on Netflix. So in the very sliver of my attention span that I'm actually giving a crap about anybody else, I'll do the best I can, right? Like, there's a reality check. Now, that does not make a good Instagram post. You're supposed to do this all the time in like gold foiled cursive letters, and that's fine, except that's not actually how I live my life. So how can I be responsible for who and how I am some of the time when I also am very aware that I am full of errors, I make mistakes all the time, and it is likely that I will do something that I don't even know I have done that could offend someone. So that's number one. I don't know how to cure that, but it's certainly something we need to talk about. The number two thing I think that we need to talk about is bad diversity trainings, which I did for 20 some odd years. Bad diversity trainings told me that you are never, ever, ever supposed to make judgments and assumptions. Have you heard this? Never, ever. Just out of funsies, you can type it into the chat so you don't have to say it out loud because it's a cuss word. But what happens when we assume? Do any of you know the little spelling game? Is anyone bold enough to type such dread into the chat? What happens when we assume? Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. It doesn't count as cussing if you have to type it. Right. So we make an ass out of you and me, which means you know how to spell. Good job. So here's what BS that is. You have to make judgments and assumptions in order to feel safe and prepared, right? So let's say you get a phone call from a brand new client. You have to adjust to the language that you are going to use with that client within milliseconds of responding to an email, a text, a chat bot, or a phone call, right? Let's say we're in public. Okay, so you've left your house. We're already scared. So you've left your house. Perhaps you're wearing a mask. I hope you're wearing a mask, but that means a third of your face is showing. And if you're wearing glasses, it's less than a third because you have to do the weird tint fog prevention thing. So you're like this, right? So you meet somebody in public and they say, hey, you're that person on that sign. I need your help. That's all they have said. Your professional experience is going to read them, what they're wearing, where they're from, what's in their cart, who they are walking with, what they are doing, how they said they saw your sign. You might ask which sign to find out which neighborhood they were in. You might be asking all kinds of questions. You're going to immediately grab information. That information is going to go boop, 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 right? And then you're going to be like, well, I would love to help you. Or you're going to be like, you know what? I'm not available, but let me introduce you to Rich. That's what you're going to do, right? Like almost instantaneously. That is making an assumption. That's making a judgment. And some of you decided to work with customers that you shouldn't have, right? I think the correct professional term is a PIDA. Have you heard of this? The pain in the ass clause? Yeah. So some of you are like, why the hell didn't I give this person to Rich? I don't want to deal with this person. How am I this deep? We're still doing this? Why are we? Just shut up. I don't care. Get a tent. Leave me alone. I don't want to deal with you anymore. There you are, still dealing with them. Then there's other people that you're sad it worked out because you loved it so much and it was so successful. And you're like, don't you need to move? How about a second home? How about we start moving into commercial real estate? That would be wonderful. I want to work with you again. Can we just be friends? You make choices. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you let someone go that ended up being amazing. Like the Pretty Woman scene, you work on commission, right? Big mistake. Very big mistake. But you made judgments and assumptions based on your lived experience. Your lived experience informs how you're going to show up. It informs what language you're going to use. It informs what names you're going to drop. It informs when you decide what you're going to gussy up, what you're going to wear, right? Like, is it a makeup day? Is it not a makeup day? It depends on who you're talking about, how much money you're actually talking about here. You will make a decision based on, now that we all live on Zoom, how you look zipper tab up. And that zipper tab up is all they ever need to know about you. To log in today, some of you actually thought, like, is this okay to be in the background? Am I dressed up enough? Some of you are more dressed up today than you have been in weeks because you're in a professional development with a fancy professional speaker and she's really going to care. I am wearing my pajamas with a sweater on top and you'll never know unless I'm stupid enough to tell you, right? So we make judgments and assumptions. It's not about not making judgments and assumptions. How the hell are you supposed to be good at your job if you don't make judgments and assumptions? But we've been told making judgments and assumptions is terrible and horrible. Making them is not what's terrible and horrible. What's terrible and horrible, or possibly has the opportunity to be terrible and horrible, is that you assume you're correct. We make judgments and assumptions to feel safe and prepared. And feeling safe and prepared, we know when we are correct, when we feel safe or prepared, because we either do or we don't. But that doesn't mean the judgments and assumptions that we've made about other people are actually accurate about the other people. The judgments and assumptions that we make are about us and how we're going to show up. Does that make sense? So for 20 years, I've been telling people, never, ever, ever, ever make judgments and assumptions. This is how you spell the word assume. Okay, great. So what is fascinating is that I, as a do-gooder white lady, tried really hard to never make judgments and assumptions. And by trying really hard to never make judgments and assumptions, what that basically means is that I was constantly failing because I either got called out for making a judgment and assumption and being incorrect, or I found out that I had made a judgment and an assumption and was incorrect. And then I felt embarrassed because I actually thought I knew something, but I didn't ever know that information. I just made a judgment and assumption. So I kept trying over and over and over again to stop doing that. Never do that. Don't do that. That's a terrible thing. Don't do that. So my number 2 big takeaway is don't stop making judgments and assumptions. They make you feel safe. They make you feel prepared. The safer and the more prepared you feel, the more likely you are to actually connect with a human being. Great. What you have to do is recognize you might not be accurate. No one likes to be wrong. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that the judgments and assumptions you're making could become more accurate. Does this make sense? So let's go back to when the first house I ever sold. I was 19. Okay. Both of my parents had just died. I had a younger brother who was an idiot. That didn't change. So I'm no longer 19. If I rolled up to you and I said, hey, I saw your face on a bus and I have to sell my parents' house, and I'm 19 years old. Okay, now keep in mind, 19, who knows what color my hair was? I was probably drunk, and I probably had a lit cigarette in my mouth because that is how I rolled in 1993. My guess is that some of you would not have earmarked me as your ideal customer, right? Some of you would have been like, this seems like a swamp of snakes and hellfire. I'm going to call Rich, right? Like there's no way that I would have been your ideal. But what ended up was I did not care how much money it cost. I did not at all weigh in with anything related to what was supposed to happen because I didn't know anything. So everything was on the realtor that I ended up using, who, by the way, was my brother's favorite second grade teacher. That's how we knew that she could even do this. Turns out that her daughter wanted to move back to our hometown, was pregnant with their first kid, and wanted to move back from Denver, was looking for a starter home for a family. Well, how perfect. This was a starter home for my family. And I didn't care. I think that it goes down that this might possibly have been the easiest sell ever in this person's professional career, and I didn't care. But had it started off, my guess is her judgments and assumptions were like, oh God, what is going to happen? I bring this up to you because I don't even know if what she did was ethical. I don't even care. I didn't have to pay a mortgage at a 19-year-old. That was a win-win. Does this make sense? You're able to make a connection in the given moment with the variables that you get to know as you get to know these people. But you get to know these people because you've made judgments and assumptions and already created your starting posture. And then with that starting posture, you lean in that way. And then hopefully you have just enough humility to set your experience slightly to the side. And then you listen. Now, every single one of us on some way, it does sales. And we all know, and somebody actually put this into something too, something they don't mind talking about, is that the person doing the most talking is actually losing the money. Have y'all heard this? You let them ramble on forever and ever and ever. You get a better idea of what's going on. You know exactly what you're going to do, and you're going to make more money because you shut your face. Shut your face equals more money. Okay, great. Most people just need to be listened to and heard. Sometimes there's a business engagement involved. Sometimes there's not. See, you already have the skill set. But again, as soon as we call this diversity, equity, and inclusion work, we're like, I never make judgments and assumptions. I'm a perfect little angel. Really? Because what did you assume this program was going to be like? Because we're about 30 minutes in now, and some of you are like, what? Am I laughing? I haven't written anything down. She doesn't even have PowerPoint yet. What is happening? What is going on? This is an educational program, and I don't use PowerPoint because I don't like technology. And why? It would just be a series of pictures of puppies. That doesn't contribute anything other than it's puppies. And cat people will be upset. So I put the PowerPoint away. We make judgments and assumptions so that we know how to show up. But that has absolutely nothing to do with how that person is showing up, because that person is making judgments and assumptions about how to show up. Now, I don't know how old everybody is, but I am of the age where you used to dress up to go to the bank. Does anybody remember this? Maybe we should start over. Does anybody remember going to a bank? Let's start there, because somehow it's December. I don't know how that happened, but back in my life, you used to dress up to go to the bank because you were doing money related things. And so you needed to look fancy. So I was raised by atheists. So I did not have church clothes, but I grew up in the South. So I knew they were called church clothes, even though none of these clothes had ever gone into a church. They had gone into a library, which is the closest thing I experienced as a church growing up, and banks. So when it was time to deposit paychecks, my mother was a school teacher, my dad was a commissioned salesperson. This happened occasionally. We would put on our Sunday best, even though it was usually a Friday, and we would go into a bank and we would wear our church clothes to make our deposits or our withdrawals. We dressed up to go to the bank. But I think what I have learned is that it was to look like successful business people, even though my mother was a fourth grade teacher in Texas, did not get paid very well, still doesn't get paid very well, probably hasn't been a pay raise since the 80s. But my father, as a commission-based salesperson who knew everybody in town and was involved in the Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I think he needed to look the part as he was navigating the streets and the tellers of the bank. I think there's also some classism that was involved, especially I noticed when his commission checks were lower, the fancier he would dress at the bank. So maybe this is a Field of Dreams moment. I'm such a Gen Xer because all of my movie references that you build it and they will come. But when my dad pulled out his 3-piece suit to go to the bank, probably was asking for a loan more than likely. And now as an entrepreneur, I get it. I understand because you dress for the role that you want. How is that any different than making judgments and assumptions? The reality is that you might have guessed wrong, right? Some of y'all put on very uncomfortable undergarments for a Zoom session because it was worth education points, right? Like kick your shoes off, not turn your video off, take your bra off. No one will know. We make judgments and assumptions so we feel safe. Sometimes we make judgments and assumptions so that we think the other people will feel safe, but we haven't even asked questions yet about what it is they need to feel safe. It's not about not making them. It's about recognizing that you do. Now, if you take those two principles, you are already doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and you have saved your burnout, and you're already prepared for all the topics that you don't even want to talk about. I promise. Now, why I feel so confident in saying this is because you already have been doing all of these things. But as soon as you sprinkle that topic or that word or that person, then you get all nervous about doing it. So just pretend it's not them. Maybe don't practice with them first. Maybe don't practice with that topic first. Do y'all know what I mean by them? Do y'all have a them? You don't have to nod. Certainly don't point fingers. It's rude, right? But there is somebody that you are not interested in engaging in a conversation with. You certainly don't want to talk about politics with them. Okay, great. Let's not talk to them. I don't mean ignore them. I mean, you're already doing that. But let's not engage in practicing the skills with the hardest people yet. I personally have not figured out how to do this particular process that I'm talking about with Dick Cheney. I have not figured this out yet. You know what? That's going to be okay. The likelihood of me having a one-on-one conversation with Dick Cheney is low. So maybe not him. How about my neighbor? Because that's a little higher, right? We meet at the garbage cans. No matter how much I try to avoid this, we meet at the garbage cans at least 2 weeks out a month. Okay, so I'm going to have to figure out how to navigate that one for the time it takes. This is the downside of a house down a private driveway. It's neighbors and garbage cans every week, long private driveway. I'm going to have to navigate that conversation way more than I'm going to have to navigate this fictitious conversation that I have nightmares about with Dick Cheney. Make sense? So be a little bit more reality based. Whoever your Dick Cheney is, which could be Dick Cheney, could be somebody else, just don't aim that high yet. Who you are actually having to deal with that you don't want to deal with may also be too high. The easiest ones, which actually are some of the hardest ones, are your closest friends, possibly the person you're living with, sheltering in place with, married to, partners, things like that. Maybe you've spawned people that you don't like to have these kind of conversations with. All of these things are possible. In theory, though, let's take your best friends. Most of us have more than one best friend, not because we're the coolest people in the world, but because each best friend is a different vault of information. Right? This is why weddings are scary, because all your best friends are there and usually alcohol is served. And that is a lot of very specific information being shared. You don't put them at the same table. Think better. So why don't you practice with your best friends? Your best friends are complete disasters. Yes, can we all agree with that? Now, not wholeheartedly, maybe, but they do something regularly that is stupid. And that's what you know about them, because that's their habitual habits. For me, I actually have a best friend who has married and divorced the same mistake 3 times. And right now they're in their divorced phase currently, and they're talking about getting married. I have explained that in the pandemic, you shouldn't do anything rash. I don't know if marrying the same person a 4th time counts as a rash decision, but it was a mistake the first time, but I'm here for it. And you get gifts 4 times in a row. So I guess there are some bonuses, but I like her anyway. Even though she continually makes this mistake and keeps getting appliances for it, I do like her anyway. I can give her some grace because she's my best friend and she seems to be in love with the same train wreck who doesn't change at all. But notice I am team her, even though she's making the same mistake. This wackadoodle dude keeps making the same mistake too, right? Like, don't marry her a fourth time. It didn't work out 3 other times. Move along, try harder, go screw up someone else's life. But that's just from the best friend perspective. But I can give grace to my best friend, even though she keeps making the same mistake over and over again. In this case, legally and literally keeps making the mistake over and over and over and over again. I still like her because as long as we don't talk about that topic, we can figure it out. She's a blast. She's one of those friends that I've known since high school. And when you're almost 50, at least in my experience, there's not very many of them anymore. Like she knew me pre-braces, post-braces. I knew her before kids, and I knew her before all 4 of her weddings, right? Like we're stuck with each other because that's just too much information to like let go. And she's still a hot mess. Here's the painful part. This is, by the way, where I might get offensive. She is doing the same thing to me. I have not married the same person 4 times. I can't believe I married somebody once, but I haven't married the same person 4 times. But I am certain that I probably have some habit that's equally as stupid to her as her marriage choices are to me. And she likes me anyway. This is literally the price of being a best friend. Why can I do that to her? But I literally lay awake at night anxious about being trapped in an elevator with Dick Cheney and trying to figure out 4 floors of conversation with this human being while I'm in an elevator. Why does that keep me awake at night? And I don't even confront this, and this person's on speed dial. The reason why is that I have given this person grace, and I have figured out a way to like them anyway. I have given this person 0 grace, and I have convinced myself I will never like them. The reality is that people can be very complicated, and we are in control of our habits. We're in control of who we give grace to and who we shut down. So then all we have to do is take responsibility for that. I'm not saying open the shutters and close the shutters. What I'm saying is notice that you can give a lot of leeway for some people and you give 0 leeway for other people. When we start talking about unconscious bias, this is literally the first step of recognizing where are you a hard no too fast and where are you a, oh, it's fine for probably too long. You don't have to change the outcome of that, but you're responsible for that kind of guardrail system you've got going on. Does that make sense? When I get asked, I have to turn my space heater off. P.S. I'm breaking the 4th wall, but I'm cooking my right leg. One moment. I'm wearing my favorite wool sweater for you. Good morning. And the amount of heat that is happening right now is way more than my personal summer. Okay. Maybe I'm just excited about being in an elevator with Dick Cheney combo. If you can take responsibility for who and how you are in these relationships, then maybe, just maybe, you can take responsibility for who and how you are in the random relationships you didn't even have planned. The connections with the random person who sees you on the sidewalk or randomly gives you a phone call or an email or a lead or a friend of a lead or a friend of 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 a lead. Have y'all ever done that? Like go to check people's social media connections. You find out you have 43 mutual friends, but those 43 mutual friends have nothing in common. And you're like, how am I supposed to even engage with this person? But if the 42 of them were all from the same event, you're like, aha, I have an icebreaker. We do this to prepare. We do this so that we can feel safe. As soon as I start saying it's diversity, equity, and inclusion work, we're like, oh, how does one prepare to be uncomfortable? You can't. That's actually the point and the definition of being uncomfortable. You can get used to being uncomfortable, but you don't actually get to prepare your way into comfort. You have to be uncomfortable. And the way to do this is to actually pay attention to where are you comfortable and where are you uncomfortable and do a self-assessment on a regular basis. It is a process in which you may very well possibly offend yourself, and that's fine. Knock yourself out. You will recover. You will forgive yourself, I promise. But being able to assess where you are at is part of taking responsibility for who and how you are. So I just want you to kind of think. You don't have to put it in chat, but you're welcome to if you like, you weird external processors who've been muted now for 44 minutes and you haven't even exploded. You're welcome to put into chat. But who is your ideal favorite person to work with, right? I don't mean their names. Some of you are immediately thinking of actual people, but is there a pattern? Is there a pattern of like, yes, right? But these are the kind of people that you love to work with. What is that? And similarly, what are the ones that you are not excited to work with? What qualities do they typically have? I'm going to go ahead and just throw out broke, lying, and unethical. Those are out of the question. Okay, so if you can pay attention to like, you like easygoing, positive people, well, that would make sense, right? Debbie Downers you don't like working with. Okay, that makes total sense. So then once you are able to kind of articulate who you like and who you don't like to work with, then go from what qualities does this person have? What qualities do these people have? That's how you can assess that bias, because normally we only focus on negative bias, but there's positive bias too. Positive bias is you have an impression, you write a whole story about someone and they seem to be funny people like Jess Pettit. Oh, that's who you want to work with. Thank you, Barbara. I already own a home. And I'm not moving to Ohio. Although my brother lives in Ohio, you know what I mean? We could probably work out a deal. When you decide who you do want to work with, just notice that you will use this self-gauging ruler now to determine if they are or are not that person. And I want you to challenge you to think how quickly you write a story about the person that you do or you do not want to work with, that either is this type of person or is not this type of person. And whether or not you allow yourself to be, we don't like the word wrong, made to be more accurate. Once you write a story and you decide that you want to work with these people, and they end up being a total pain in the ass, a control freak, a Debbie Downer, super pessimistic, or I imagine like very opinionated. When I've never owned a home before until this house. I did not know I could have strong opinions about sconces. I also almost didn't go on a first date with my husband because he has a crooked tooth. I did not realize I had a tooth thing, but I went on a date and I felt very, very big. So I went on a date with this guy with a crooked tooth and now I'm married to him. How'd that happen? Right? Did not like the lampshades. Why would anybody put a boob lamp on a vertical wall, let alone in every room? Who said to do this? This is horrible. Also just got new floors, ripped up the bad carpet to find, no, not hardwoods underneath, just the original cork floors. Why would you put shag carpet on top of cork floors? And why would you not use staples? Instead, you used glue. What is wrong with you people, right? Okay, I have lots of opinions about humans I've never even met. What a nice example. What story have I written about these evil people who covered up the original cork floors with glue? Same people put acoustic tiling on our redwood ceilings and used staples. Anyway, I digress. If you can be responsible for who and how you are, you can realize where these stories are coming from. You can be as right as you want to be about the stories, but that doesn't mean you're accurate. And in order to get accurate, you're actually going to have to listen. Now, people already said that one of the things that they've already learned is that they have been able to listen more and talk less. Debbie, it's funny. I did a video yesterday about Karens as a group versus as individuals. And my friends Debbie were all like, what about Debbie Downer? Can we talk about Debbie Downer? We can have this conversation about group and individuals if you're interested with Debbie Downers too. What I'm inviting you to do is to literally work with the tools that you already got. When I told you that I was burning out, the main reason I was burning out is because I thought, number one, that I was already doing everything I possibly could. And that was really embarrassing because I was actually doing a terrible job and I was a horrible person and people were coming to me for advice. That is not fueling confidence. That laid the foundation of burning out. Then I was just doing it too much for too long. So then imposter syndrome was kicking in and I just felt like everything I was doing was a lie. Perfect fertile ground for burnout. I have since flipped it all inside out. And instead of looking at it as external stuff coming in, what I've tried to do is to flip it inside out and use the skills that I already have so that I can more consciously be responsible for who and how I am. Now, doing the work of being responsible for who and how I am is not easy work because I am a disaster. That actually is true. I was not wrong about that during the little burnout phase. I am a hot mess. But it is also the case that for some people, I'm the best they've got. Where I am a disaster, that is super bad news for them, that I'm the person they're choosing to come to because I wouldn't come to me. Why are you making such terrible choices? Who knows, but they are. And now here we are in the moment, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do the best I can with what I got some of the time. It's funny to me that in your professional ethics, you know that you are not supposed to exaggerate, you're not supposed to misrepresent, you're not supposed to lie, you're not supposed to, what's the word, screw anybody over, I think is that understandable and relatable language. I didn't see those exact words in your code of ethics. But when you're not supposed to lie and you're supposed to be completely honest in a way that is completely understandable, truthful, and clear with the people that you are working with, it seems to me that you are already capable of adjusting who and how you are with the people that you work with. And maybe that's a skill set you have with some of the people, particularly the people that you love working with, because you don't have to adjust out of your comfort zone. Maybe that's how you determine who you love to work with. Okay, that sounds great. And you're probably leaving money on the table because there are other people who would love to work with you that you don't think that you would like to work with. Just like there are people who don't work with you because they think they'd rather work with somebody else. We have no control over the story that somebody writes about us, other than role playing or showcasing what it means to listen and to allow someone's story to actually filter through the story we have written about them and modify it so that it more accurately reflects them. The best secrets of customer service is actually providing service to a customer that they want, not the best customer service that you would want. We often hear about the golden rule, right? Which is where if I ask you what the golden rule is, you all start sounding like pirates because you're supposed to treat people unto which you wish to be treated. But the truth is that not everybody likes to be treated your way. They like to be treated their way, which means you're going to have to take some time to figure out how do they want to be treated. Tony Alessandra did some work and actually came up with the concept of the platinum rule, which is different than the golden rule. Because the platinum rule is about treating people the way they want to be treated, right? Like it is very possible that if someone were working with me, somebody said I was funny. Thank you. I worked very hard on that. What if you were like super serious? Like, I don't want to have a serious interaction. I'm super nervous about doing grown-up things. I have to buy a house. I have to fill out paperwork. Do you know how many signatures that is? I'm a triple Virgo. I read all of the forms that I signed in order to buy this house. I had to Google a lot of things because I all of a sudden felt very stupid. I need someone to be funny and accessible and be able to work with me. I knew that we had the right realtor is when we called and found this house. I called her. She was on vacation. As I'm very sorry to interrupt you. However, we have found the house that we want to buy. I told her where it was, and she's like, I just looked this up. It's 1,000 square feet smaller. It's $100,000 more than you were looking for. What is going on? And I was like, I don't know. I'm taking a nap in the backyard. If she couldn't deal with basically breaking and entering and me taking a nap because of my sense of humor, and she knew we weren't kidding, that wouldn't have worked, right? Like she was on vacation, she's far away, she wasn't even connected to the particular plot, she had to go argue with someone. I live in a very small town, so it was very territorial. It was a thing. We didn't care. This is the house that we were buying. You know how to do that customer service wise with the clients that you have chosen to work with. Why can't you do that with your family members? Why can't you do that with total strangers? What I have learned is that I can't do it 100% of the time, largely because I'm a jerk. But I can do it some of the time with people when I consciously decide like, wait, this is one of those moments. Maybe in this moment, right now, maybe I could actually make a better connection with this person. And I slow down enough. And instead of treating the other person in the example the way that I think they should be treated, because I, of course, know right, I slow down enough and actually engage in a conversation with them about them and how they want to actually present themselves with me. I employ the platinum rule and treat them the way they want to be treated instead of the golden rule, which is what I'm more comfortable with. I'm actually making a human connection, even if it's for 4 minutes on an elevator. The example I like to use to distinguish between the golden rule and the platinum rule is pizza. Who doesn't love pizza? I mean, a lot of people don't love pizza, but I love pizza. So we're going to go with this. Okay, so Chrissy and I have dealt with each other for this program for quite some time. I have decided I'm going to lunch with Chrissy. Have I even invited her? No. Right now, she's panicking because she thinks that I'm going to make her talk, but I'm not going to make her talk because earlier she said she doesn't like talking in front of groups of people. So don't you worry, you're muted. You just stay right over there, but I used your name. So if I decide I'm going to lunch with Chrissy, don't worry, Chrissy, I've already ordered us a pizza. I got a extra large, extra cheese, green olive pizza. It's my favorite. Okay, fun facts. Most people don't like green olives at all. For the record, you're wrong because green olives are the best pizza topping that exists. But usually this means more pizza for me. I'm not stupid. If I order a green olive pizza, I'm getting the leftovers. Golden rule is that I just extended an invitation to a new friend to lunch. I have decided we want pizza and I pre-ordered the pizza, which is my favorite kind of pizza. And I'm going to share my favorite pizza with my friend at lunch. What if Chrissy is not available? What if Chrissy had pizza for breakfast? What if Chrissy is 99.9% of wrong people and doesn't like green olives on their pizza? Golden rule says I'm super nice. Do you see the missed connection there? So now Chrissy has to figure out some nice way to tell me that I'm disgusting and that she doesn't like green olives, and figure out how to politely navigate that she doesn't want to go to lunch and that she might also have like a gluten intolerant situation. So this pizza place might not be good. And back in high school, it's a small town. She actually dated the owner of that pizza place. So it's really awkward. She's not allowed to go to that pizza place. Like none of this is working out. P.S. All of this was hypothetical. I don't know that much about Chrissy. Okay, but that's the golden rule. Do you see how often you show up in your own life with the golden rule? You're just being awesome and nice, but you're not listening and you're not engaging the other person's reality at all in your definition of awesome and nice. The platinum rule, which again, Tony Alessandra's work, I highly recommend it, is to actually treat someone the way they want to be treated. So if we were to go to lunch and have pizza, then what we would have to do is have a conversation. First off, would you like to go to lunch with me? If yes, when works for your schedule? Fantastic. Okay. I also am available 7 weeks from now. Where do we want to go to lunch? What kind of food do we like? Do we like sharing stuff? Are you like your own personal pan pizza kind of thing? Do you say you're a sharer because you want a piece of theirs, but they're not allowed to have a piece of yours? What is the truth here, right? Let's examine this. Then what kind of pizza do you like? What are your favorite kind of toppings? Are you one of those people that go to a pizza place and eat salad? Why? Why do you do that? I feel like that's bars who like offer goldfish and on a menu as a food item because you have to serve food in order to serve liquor, right? Why is there a salad bar? Nobody showed up for the salad bar. Nobody goes to a pizza restaurant for the salad bar. Just add another table, will you? Or an arcade machine or something. An ice cream. How about one of them ice cream pulley downy soft serve things? Why is there a salad bar? Somebody somewhere, and you're going to show up in chat and be like, well, actually eating a salad, it makes it a complete protein and it's better for fat digest. I don't fucking know. Anyway, bad word. See, I already offended someone. Don't put a salad bar in a pizza place. Okay, so the platinum rule is having the salad bar for whoever wants to come and eat their damn salad, right? I'm actually a vegetarian, so I guess I'm supposed to eat salad, but I don't like vegetables. It's been a hard year. The platinum rule is asking questions that you don't know the answers to. Again, it's taking your lived experience and your professional experience and just setting it slightly to the side and engaging in a conversation. You're making judgments and assumptions and trying to figure out how to show up. You've been self-reflective. You're taking responsibility for your own pizza topping choices that aren't green olives, which is a mistake. And you are going to show up and engage in a conversation with someone else and put your experience just slightly here and listen for theirs. Can you do this 100% of the time? No. Why would I want to be that kind of a person? Literally, that kind of a person, that nice, that available, that opening of a listener? Ugh, Ugh, I actually, at the root of it, don't like most people. Why would I want to do that? Okay, well, don't shoot for always. How about just some of the time? Could you do it could you do it some or more of the time than you some of the current time are doing it? Could you do that? I'm going to go with yes. I'm going to go with that you could do it some of the time. When I was curing my burnout, you may think that I have forgotten where I started this story, but when I realized I was burnout and I needed to actually figure out how to like continue on, largely because I have no other monetizable skills, the only other thing I know how to do is to fold a fitted sheet, which is very intriguing to some, but certainly not monetizable. I had to figure out how to keep doing this kind of work, but in a way that was re-energizing. So like I said, I flipped it inside out. And what I decided to do was to use the skills that I think most of us already have easy access to, so that we then could use those skills and not be manipulative, not be used car salesmen, not be the Jedi skilled trend of the business book of the month, but just be a real person and just show up and show up fairly conscious and aware of kind of who I might be some of the time, and set that slightly to the side and then find out who I'm dealing with. I literally call this making better connections. It's not about having better conversations. It's not about winning better arguments. It's not about even winning better business deals, but it's about making better connections. And when I decided that I want to make a better connection, occasionally, not all the time, and I didn't start with Dick Cheney, but when I decide that I want to make a better connection, what that means is that in this moment, I'm going to try to make a better connection. And I am aware that I am not guaranteed a conversation partner. No one says that, yes, absolutely, positively, 100%, you are guaranteed a conversation partner and they're going to love it. That's not actually how this game works. What I can do, though, is that I can be my own conversation partner and I can realize that I have the possibility of making a better connection and that I'm responsible for all of the connections I make and all of the connections that I miss. Then I can actually make a better connection. So let me give you an example, because some of you are like, what is going on now? I'm confused. You already have the skill sets. I'm not actually teaching you anything that new. But I am talking about something that not only is profitable, lucrative money-wise, but is also profitable in the sense that you get to feel like a better person. Those conversations that you are having that make you nervous, those topics that make you feel a little like agita creation, maybe you can lean into some of those patterns and recognize that, like, no, I just want to have a better connection with this human. Maybe you just pick a different topic then. Maybe you listen to them talk about a topic that makes you nervous, but you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to disengage, but you can listen to them and listen to how they're doing and what they're talking about. I put a handout into the chat. It's called Better Connections. It's a flow chart. If you're interested, you're welcome to download it. But what I want you to do is to think about, maybe once in a while, don't start with them. If you need to, you can start with your best friends, or your partners, or your spouses, or your siblings, or your inner circle folks. What is weird about that is that no matter how long you've been friends with them, you're still learning things about them. So you could try. Sometimes they call you out because they're like, what workshop did you go to? What is happening here? Let me see the handout. So then give it to them too, right? Or I think it's sometimes easier to start with this group in the middle that you may never see again. And you just consciously decide, I'm going to try to make a better connection with this human. Again, they are not promising that they are going to play back. It doesn't matter. We're just talking about you and what I call party of one work in my book. What I want you to do is to think about how you're going to show up with this particular conversation and how you're going to show up and kind of your kryptonite topics, right? You could do it through a kryptonite topic. You could start with something you're more comfortable with. Doesn't matter. But how can you slow your roll enough to find out how they are doing, listen to them as if they are wise, and truth be told, they know how they're doing more than you know how they are doing. Listen first. Form an idea and a concept that you want to exchange. Pick a way you're going to do that. In this case, it's going to be a verbal conversation. Then you like release the message, and then you're able to take responsibility for it because you actually planned out what your intention was before you released the message. Then it's a lot easier to take responsibility for it, whether it worked or it didn't work, it was congruent, incongruent, positive, neutral, negative, and then what the impact of your relationship is with this person if you were to see them again or you were to engage with them again. So the example I want to use is it's about flamingos. So I have very strange friends. I feel like I am very a strange person, and so I attract strange people. For some of you, this means you're strange because you're like, she's amazing. Where did they find her? I want to be friends. That means you're weird. Welcome to Team Flamingo. So what ends up happening in Team Flamingo is I don't like stuff, right? So don't mail me plastic things. I do not like plastic things. That's Beth Z's category, and I love her and not her stuff. So a friend and I, we constantly exchange gifts or images or pictures or something if there's a flamingo in it. Why do we do this? It's a very long story, and it actually kind of started out making fun of someone else, and now it's become our thing, which is funny. Okay, flamingos. Her name is Sylvie. So I went to text message my friend Sylvie a flamingo picture because that is what we do. So evidently, fat fingers, I accidentally texted Sylvia, not Sylvie, the picture of a flamingo. So Sylvia happens to be my favorite aunt. My favorite aunt died in a house fire a number of years ago. I kind of didn't even realize I still had her number in my cell phone, and I did. Didn't even realize that I sent it to Sylvia. I meant to send it to Sylvie. So I get a text back from Sylvia. My little text alert goes off that Sylvia has sent me a text. I believe I'm being like texted from a ghost. I have a little bit of a moment. I open it and I find out that I have sent the flamingos to someone who has my aunt's cell phone number. Are you following me? This needed some background. I apologize, but now you all want to see the GIF of flamingos. So this person text messages me back and says, I think you sent this to the wrong person. So I, after recovering from ghosts texting, I did have a ghost in my apartment when I was in graduate school. We played chess. We can talk about that later if you want. I did not always win, just for the record. Anyway, so I get a text back from the person who has Sylvia's cell phone number. I think you sent this to the wrong person. So I decide I'm going to practice this better connection thing. Now, we have all received wrong calls, wrong numbers, wrong texts, whatever. You can just delete them. I don't know why it is so hard for people to just delete it. You don't have to complain about this, but I don't know who's on the other end. I decide I'm going to practice page 192 of my book, this little flowchart situation. So I decide, okay, they did not write back, how dare you send me a text of a baby flamingo, right? Like they didn't do that. Okay, well, maybe they're not totally horrible humans. So I listened to them. I decided I'm going to text. I want to make this moment be a better connection opportunity, at least for me, for the karma of my Aunt Sylvia, right? Like that was my motivation. So I decide I'm going to send a text back that tells this human being, I don't even know their name, how lucky they are to have such a wonderful person's text number. They may not care. They could be driving. They might be in a meeting. Maybe I'm rescuing them from a conversation they don't want to have. I don't know. Out of my control. This is about me. I want to have a better connection. So I send a text back to said person who has Sylvia's number and say, I'm very sorry to bother you. Thank you for the alert. I meant to send it to my friend Sylvie, and I have this number saved as Sylvia, who is actually my aunt who died a number of years ago in a house fire. I just want to let you know that she's my favorite relative I ever had. She's the most wonderful person I ever met. And I think you are really lucky to have such an incredible person's cell phone number. I just wanted to let you know, congratulations, you have won the cell phone number lottery. Now, that is my intention. Could this person respond, stop texting me, what is wrong with you, jerk, right? Like they could have. They didn't. This is not a Hallmark movie. We didn't meet. I didn't quit my job and move to the forest and like start selling syrup because it's Hallmark movie season. They did text back and they said, what is interesting is you are not the only person who has told me that I have won the cell phone number lottery. The Sylvia person sounded amazing. That is what they texted back. Now, I don't know this person. We are not friends. right? Didn't happen. I will tell you that about 2 years later, I got another text from a ghost, and it was another picture of a flamingo. I think they were at a zoo with their kid, and they somehow remembered that I existed on the planet, and they sent me a picture of a flamingo. I feel like that really is a win. But the point is that it's not about what I always get out. It's about being present, taking responsibility for who and how I am in that moment, and informing someone at the risk of them cussing me out for texting them a second time, just to increase the amount of good and smiles in my life, because I have control over my life. Now, I was rewarded by the bonus baby flamingo picture. Don't you think that I didn't enjoy that? Did I text them back? No, because I'm a jerk and I was busy. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And then it got lost in my inbox and I have no idea what it is. And I don't know if Sylvia's still on my cell phone number. I probably haven't deleted her because there's a lot of people I should delete. I'm not going to start with my aunt. Anyway, I need a therapy appointment. My point is, we started at the top of this. If you already have the skills, as soon as I call it diversity, equity, and inclusion work, most of you are like, I don't know what to do with that. Ugh. When I ask you about topics, you're all like, politics, can't talk about politics. Okay, well, here's what's fun about politics. Some people don't care about politics at all, like at all. Some people, me included, are obsessed with politics. I can have a conversation with you about the stack of House bills and Senate bills that are on the congressional floor waiting for someone to pay attention to them. There are some that have been on the floor since prior to my birth. They're not moving anywhere. But I am happy to talk about that. That is very exciting. I'm happy to talk about the stats, the whipping of the votes, the language, the editing. I am happy to talk about any of these bills because I'm obsessed with them. You flip it to the sports ball. Don't care at all. Doesn't matter how big of an insert sports team fan you are not going to convert me to a sports ball fan. Not going to happen. Number one, I was raised by professional athletes, right? So that already screwed me up. And number two, I don't care. Ultimately, what it really, I will admit, I went to one baseball game in person, and the only thing I recall was that people brought me hot dogs. That was amazing. I don't remember anything else. There wasn't even a band, but there were hot dogs. So if there are hot dogs, I might go, but otherwise I don't care. But if you like the sports ball, like I like politics, isn't it interesting that we're both passionate about something that some people don't care about? We could talk about that. We don't actually have to talk about the thing that we actually care about. Does this make sense? When you take responsibility for who and how you are, and then you allow yourself to kind of set it slightly off to the side, then you're able to meet somebody where they are at. Perhaps there are topics that you probably shouldn't talk about. Okay, great. My brother is deep into the QAnon stuff. Do any of you know what I'm talking about with this QAnon stuff? Some of you do. Maybe statistically speaking, some of you are also deep into the QAnon. Okay, great. Just for the record, when you send me videos, this is what I told my brother the other day, when you send me videos, when I ask you what you think about something, that is not answering me what you think about something. That is answering what somebody with a video camera is thinking about something. And I want to know what you think about the something. We are stuck in this loop right now because he keeps sending me pictures about Hillary Clinton being a cannibal pedophile, which is interesting to play in the background while dusting. At least I got to dust. Okay, so I can talk badly about Hillary Clinton. I could meet you at what is wrong with most politicians in the United States. Let's have that conversation. I am completely fine with that. Let's also talk about how capitalism is ruining everything. I am totally fine with that too. But we don't actually have to talk about things that we know we're going to disagree with. We can find not just the middle ground, because that's all been politicized as well, but we can also find other things to talk about. You can decide in the moment what it is you want to connect on, which is different than a transactional conversation that you're going to win. When do you show up ready to win? When do you show up ready to make them lose? Because I don't know about you, that is a very different entrance posture. Versus, when do you show up like completely prepared to ask a question you don't even know the answer to? If you can pay attention to just that cycle, then you're showing up sometimes ready to actually have a connection with someone because you don't even know the answer to something. When you ask, I'm just going to guess, I have never sold a house. I have only bought one house. I guess I have sold one house, but I wasn't paying attention. And I have bought one house. But what I think is interesting is that I would imagine, even if you were to ask, when I ask, like as a speaker consultant person, there's always the question of what is your budget, right? I already know what I think your budget is, right? Like I've had a conversation with you for 20 minutes. I have already figured out probably where you are at. Now you could surprise me and be higher than that. You could surprise me and be lower than that. Okay, we'll figure it out. But what isn't surprising to me is that very few people love having the conversation about how much is this going to cost. As a professional speaker and a consultant inside of COVID, the only question now that is more contentious than how much do I cost is, at least at the beginning of all of this, because who knew we'd be in this for 9 months, is will I get on an airplane? So then I learned to say very early on, just so you know, I'm not getting on an airplane. Due to HIPAA violations, I'm not allowed to tell you that I have a lung disorder. So I have really bad lungs. So I am not allowed to go basically outside of my home. But thank goodness for the interwebs. So we'll just do this online. So I could take that out when meeting planners were all nervous about like, oh, I don't know what to do. And how do we do this? How do I ask this question, right? Like, I'm not getting on an airplane. I will make that part easy for you. When it came to price, people were super nervous because there's the pre-COVID pricing. There is the post-COVID pricing. Post-COVID pricing, I have done 2 weeks worth of work for a weed whacker. We needed a weed whacker. I can't go to a store, and it was delivered to my home. Sounds amazing. Thank you very much, right? Like there are a million ways of solving people's problems if you're just willing to listen in the first place. If you are willing to listen some of the time, can you listen even less frequently, just rarely on a rare occasion? Can you listen as if they are wise? Can you listen like they know what's going on and they are picking and choosing what information to tell you? Maybe they are in their Sunday best because they think they're supposed to. Maybe they don't know certain things and you're like, what is happening? You're going to have a conversation with them about them in order for them to feel like they are having a conversation with you. And I don't just mean clients, but I mean your family members. I mean random strangers. I mean random people receiving flamingo texts. Can you listen to people as if they are wise about themselves and that they are picking and choosing what to tell you? I will tell you right now, 100% of the time, no. Because it is a habit of like, let me tell you how I'm right. That is a defense mechanism. It makes us feel safe. It makes us feel prepared. And that is what sources all of our judgments and assumptions. That is true. But some of the time, I can pay attention enough to set that aside and engage in a conversation. When I flipped my work inside out and stopped gathering all of this outside stuff, nothing wrong with lived experiences. Lived experiences teach me how to show up. Okay. But I flipped it inside out to work with the skills and the experiences I already have that have already formed the habits I have already formed. When I did that, what I realized is that I was so scared of not winning, making 100% an A++ with extra bonus points, that I was actually opting out of very important relationships and opportunities because I was scared that I wasn't going to nail it. But I hadn't even started. How do I actually know? I've mentioned my brother a couple of times, and I cannot emphasize how completely different we have turned out. And he's still my brother. When our parents died, my big goal was for him to be breathing when he turned 40. That was my goal. I don't know why that's what came out of my face at 19, but that was the goal. I even wrote it down. My dad would be so proud. My brother is now 40. How old am I? He's 43. I think he's about to turn 44. Breathing, married, 2 children, sober, evangelical Christian minister person in Eaton, Ohio. Do y'all know where that is? No. Why? Because 3 people live there. I was there when they got a red light. It was very exciting. That is where he lives. And we talk as regularly as my therapist recommends. And he is breathing. I did good. Yay for me. One of the most powerful conversations we had was probably about 10 years ago now, would be my guess. And I was trying to explain to him all of the conferences I had gone to, the books that I had read. As a professional speaker, I had met all these people about dealing with family members from substance abuse, etc., and Al-Anon meetings. Our parents did not drink or do drugs, but it was the only thing I could find that dealt with dealing with family members that you have difficulties with. So I was attending Al-Anon meetings for the wrong reasons, but I didn't know where else to go. I was doing all of this stuff because I was trying really hard to like be a great sister. It was really important to me to like super nail good sister, great sister, fabulous sister. So I'm showing off to him and telling him about all this prep work that I had done. I think I'd even done some certification. I got a certificate in the mail. It probably came with a t-shirt. I was very proud of myself. Maybe some letters after my name. So I'm telling him about that. I'm like almost done with this program. And then I'm going to be like amazing. I'm going to be like the best sister ever. To which my brother, as annoying as he is, right? I'm assuming this is what's wrong with having children too, is that they like just tell you the truth and you're like, anyway, I don't know. I have a brother. So I'm telling him all of this and he just patiently lets me go. He's actually pretty quiet. I got the smarts and the personality and he got the devastatingly good looks and magically good at anything related to a ball. I am not avid endorsement, not him. Lets me go. Eventually he just says, you could just like text back. That'd be enough. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, we have to have conversations that are centered in these core counseling processes and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you have been my sister my entire life. Bonus of being the oldest. I don't have any choice in who my sister is. And I have been waiting for you to be available for a very, very, very long period of time. You are doing the sister job that you say you are preparing to start. Not only was I missing decades of actually consciously paying attention of being my brother's sister, but my attention was being directed to the kind of sister I thought I ought to be, while I was neglecting the brother I was trying to be a sister to. Is this making sense? I have a weekly therapy appointment. I'm still working through this. But the point is that when I flipped everything internally, I realized not only do I have the skill sets and the experience and the ideas of all the failures, but I have run away from things I think I haven't started yet that actually started prior to me running away, which means I've just been neglecting them while I have been studying how to do them perfectly. This was a huge wake-up call for me, because what I realized is that this is exactly how I feel about people and topics and things and items and historical moments or moments that actually happened in our lives that I've been trying to avoid, is that I've been avoiding them until I could do them perfectly. Meanwhile, I have been completely neglecting them. By using the skills and the life experience you already have, you can just stop neglecting things. You don't actually have to wait until you get perfect. You actually are already actively doing something that you are trying to do perfectly. You're already doing it. You're just not doing it perfectly, but now you're not even consciously doing it. So stop trying to do it perfectly and actually just consciously engage. That's it. That was the big shift. I told you, you're going to get your money's worth today, right? Welcome to your continuing education units. If you showed up at a different time, please make sure you put your name and your licensing number in the chat. Get your points. But that's ultimately it, right? Is what can you consciously engage in right now that you are unconsciously avoiding? That's it. When we talk about getting through unconscious bias, I get hired all the time to come in and fix unconscious bias. But as soon as you fix unconscious bias, it is replaced by more things that you are unconscious of. That is a container that will always be full. And the way to fix it is to become conscious of what you are unconscious of, which involves a lot of things metaphorically and physically that looks like this. Didn't know that was there. That's what that looks like, right? How can you become conscious of what you are unconscious of outside of yourself? I don't know what you're unconscious of. Yeah, I'm some fancy schmancy expert that has letters after my name. Look at me, right? I am a disaster. Why did you choose me? Who else is on this educational calendar? Aim higher. And I'm actually spot on. When I flipped my work inside out, I came up with the concept of good enough now, largely because I was listening to my audience members while I was already convinced I was going to quit. I'm done, but I had like contracts and customers I still needed to kind of finish up when I had told myself I was quitting. I started listening to those audience members and they started telling me why they weren't good enough to engage with a particular family member or a particular topic or for a promotion or for a particular client or a particular goal, a financial goal that they set for themselves, why they weren't good enough. And they were telling me why they weren't perfectly ready and comfortable with engaging or achieving. Okay, well, I'm not perfectly ready for anything. This is an outline of this talk. I forgot to look at it about an hour in. Hope I covered it, right? Like, seems to be going okay so far, so just keep running with it. It's not about perfect and winning. It's about doing the best you can with what you've got some of the time. Doing the best you can with what you got some of the time is a hell of a lot better than doing nothing never. It's a hell of a lot better than the moment when my brother actually has the nerve to tell me that I could just already lean into the fact that I'm already being his sister. I just didn't get the t-shirt in the mail or the membership card. I'm already doing it. It's not about whether I'm doing it right or wrong. I'm already doing it, whether I am actively aware or not. Becoming conscious of what I am unconscious of is my responsibility. Doing the best I can with what I got some of the time cannot be made externally for me to do. It is my work to be done. It's no one else's responsibility. And honestly, I wouldn't take that kind of advice from anybody outside of me. There's a reason I have a therapist, but she's largely wrong, right? Like, I mean, I just write her a check every week, but she obviously isn't accurate. I'm not even fixed yet. The reason why I'm not fixed is because I don't actually listen to my therapist. And every once in a while, I don't know if you have a therapist and if you experience these things, but every once in a while, when we would meet in person, now it's on the phone, so I can't see her do it, but I can hear it occasionally. I rapid fire vomited her words. She somehow writes every single thing I say down on her little sheet of paper. And every once in a while, it's quiet. And when we were in person, she'd put the reams of paper that she's been writing, she'd put it down, she'd set her pen down and look at me. And I'd be like, oh God, here it comes. I brace myself. Sometimes she'd sneeze, but most of the time she would retell me back a pattern that I am completely oblivious of, that is exactly the same thing that I have always been doing. And she has reams of paper to document it. And yet again, she will call to my attention the same pattern. And I will either choose to do it again or I will choose not to do it again. And how is that any different than my best friend marrying the same guy the fourth time? Maybe I'm supposed to be happy for them. Fourth time, maybe I should upgrade the blender they got the first time. Let people live their life. You get to live your life. We actually could pay attention enough to realize that the life that you are living is already a bazillion times more complicated than I think it is, because there's stuff going on in your life that you haven't told anybody. Sometimes we actually think that there are parts of our lives that are secret from other people. If we've learned anything from COVID, it's that our personal and our professional life is being carried with us all the time. A virtual background is not hiding that. I hope one of the biggest takeaways that we take from this waves armed frantically 2020 what is happening experience So we allow people to have children and dogs and cats. We all know how to use mute and unmute, and we forget because we're not paying attention. We're multitasking and doing a million different things. And if I do have to use PowerPoint, I've learned as a presenter to say, like, I am about to show a slide that's really important so that people can scamper back to the other side of the kitchen and actually find the screen and look at the thing in time. There's a kindness that comes with not interacting with other people, but a kindness that comes with interacting with yourself. And perhaps doing the best you can with what you got some of the time will allow you to apply the platinum rule to yourself. That's the highest goal. So you might as well just start and practice a level easier and navigate total strangers with kindness every once in a while. Why not? More than ever right now, I think there are people who are missing actual interaction and newness and the novelty of getting to know someone. And more exciting, there are these other people. I married one of these people who seems somehow genetically predispositioned to sheltering in place. They are enjoying this. My dogs are so happy that both of their parents are home 24/7. I am crawling out of my skin. That 1,000 square feet that we bought that isn't part of this house would come in very handy right now, but I'd be bored to tears with it 9 months in. I just need like a new thing to magically appear in the backyard. Newness. I'm missing newness. I would kill for a delayed flight at O'Hare right now, or a soggy salad that comes in a plastic box that I get to eat in a chair that is not near as wide as my hips. That would be amazing. These are all things I took for granted in my weird traveling life. But I told my therapist this week, I now have a laundry schedule at home. This week is towel week. I'm cleaning all of my towels. I have folded them in little spa circles because I also miss spas. It's great. My linen closet is epic. I get to choose who and how I want to be. And I recommend that you take the same kind of responsibility. Do the best you can with what you got some of the time. That is good enough now, right? So if you haven't already, click on the link and make sure that we have your name and your licensing number. 2, I want to turn it back over to Chrissy because I think Kevin might be here, who is our fancy sponsor from Cutco. If Kevin is not here, I can't tell from Chrissy's face. Cutco is the sponsor of the meeting. It looks like a Negator Skeletor. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a little Cutco commercial. First off, Cutco is the first job I was ever fired from. And the reason why I was fired, are you ready for this? Are you ready? Are you ready? Write this down. Kevin, listen to this. I'm not over it. I got fired from my job at Cutco because I sold more than the other people in my little group. And I was putting too much pressure on my coworkers by being successful. I have never been more honored in my entire life. Thank you very much. And that is a great lesson for a 22-year-old because I take letters of reprimand as a compliment. Thank you very much. Should also mention I'm self-employed. So Cutco Knives brought you this program. Thank you very much, Kevin and Cutco. Thank you, Vicki and Chrissy, and for all of you for attending. Please make sure your name and your licensing number is in the chat and or on the survey. And I'm going to flip it back over to Chrissy now, who you are probably going to have to talk.
Thank you very much, Jess. We appreciate you. Does anybody have any questions before we log off? Guess not. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Remember, do the best you can with what you got some of the time. And it looks like the mail's here now.
Mail comes early.
I know, every morning.
Well, enjoy that view. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. If you need anything else, let us know. The handout will come to you in email. And if there's anything else I can do, just let me know. And if you're interested, you can go to goodenoughnow.book.com. It is an ebook, an audiobook, and a book club that comes with the ebook if you're interested.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been fun.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.
Okay, I thought it was a great class. Thanks, everybody. See
Oh,
you somewhere.
wait a minute, you're not in a suit
Hey.
today.
That's
I am
right.
not. And not.
What's up with that?
Remember, if you have any clients you don't want to work with, just give them to Rich.
Okay, I've got a couple.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I forgot to thank that.
That's what happens when you log in first.
Just what I need.
I miss Vic. Miss seeing you.
What's that?
I don't know.
Pam, how are you?
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to Patty.
Oh, I'm good, Rich. How are you?
Good, good. So you left Mark back in the snow, huh?
I did for 3 weeks, but that was his choice.
Yep, that's it. He's tough. He can handle it.
That's right. That's right. But he's coming down next week and then we'll be home for the holidays.
That's good.
But it's been nice. It's been beautiful down here.
I
So it's
know.
a good time to come.
I hope to get down there hopefully in the next month or two. My daughter lives down there, so we'll see.
Oh, where's she at?
Ocala.
Oh, okay. She's central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got horses, so she loves that horse country stuff. So.
Oh, I get that. Mark
Yeah.
is actually taking care of my horses. This is why I'm gone.
I know. I don't know if my daughter would trust me because she'd probably think when she came back, they'd be half of them would be gone. But whatever.